Hello, Stuart here from Berkshire Guitar Amplifier Repairs, Reading, England. On the bench we have a Fender HotRoad DeVille 3. This will be, I'm hoping, a short little video. The amp hadn't been used for quite some time and the chap went to turn it on and it worked for a little while and died completely. So I'm going to include this video in case it's a kind of fairly quick fix. I think it's useful to have some very simple little fixes recorded on video rather than the long complicated ones, but of course we never know what we're going to be getting into here. I haven't even opened it up yet or turned it on, so let's turn it on, see what's happening and see if we can find out what's wrong with this amp. Here we are top side. It all looks in quite good condition. It's been heavily gigged apparently and had no TLC, but it actually looks quite nice. It's all very clean and yeah, looks in good condition. I noticed the handle's broken due to a split here. This shouldn't be allowed to happen really, should it? I mean, that's not very good design, that the handle can split like that. These are very heavy amps and when you pick it up it puts a lot of force on this particular joint here and that's split open. So poor design, Fender. That should be lasting 50 years, not 5. The other thing I noticed, I haven't turned the amp on yet, but I do notice that the mains cable is very kinked and stiff. You know, I can hardly straighten this. It's really stiff, almost like it's kind of well, I don't know what really. So that's a bit strange. It's been, you know, coiled up frequently, but it's yeah, just feels really stiff, that. Anyway, let's just plug it in and see what happens. I don't know whether it means it's dead, there's no power coming into the amp, or whether it means it's got no sound. Right, on. Okay, dead. Well, there's no light anyway. I suppose it's possible that the dual light's gone. Okay, so I want to hopefully make this a simple fault finding video for people without a lot of technical experience. So what would you do if you saw this amp here? What would be the first thing you would check? We could just be fooling ourselves and the dual light doesn't work. Of course we can check that easily by taking the back off and seeing if the valve's light. But the very first thing I would check is the fuse in the mains plug. That might have blown, so let's just have a quick look. We've got what sort of, okay, it's this sort of plug-in fuse here, so let's have a look and see if that's blown. Right, set my meter for continuity. It gives a nice beep if I do that. And we'll just take the fuse out. Of course, if the fuse has blown, we want to know why. It's quite unusual for the mains fuse to blow here. Anyway, what's happening? No, fuse. Actually, it's interesting. That fuse isn't what that fuse wasn't clipped in terribly well there. I suppose it's just possible that was a little bit loose. That fuse had to sort of push it back in. Okay, we're back in and plugged on in. No, it wasn't that. I didn't think it would be. Alright, so I'm going to take the back off and see if the valves are lighting. If they are, of course, it's just this fuse that's the problem. I can't hear anything coming out of the amp, there's no hum and no noise of it warming up. So I think this has got some internal problem. Let's see if we can find out what it is. Quick look along inside this amp. And these are nice amps really, they're very loud. Great gigging amps. And you know, quite good workhorses really. They use cheap caps in them, which is a shame. It's worth replacing those caps, but I don't know whether the customer has the budget for that. They're okay, but they will eventually go. They're quite cheap and cheerful. The other problem with these amps is these power resistors here, which get very hot. This produces the, I think it's plus or minus 15 volts through a couple of Xenos, and they get very hot and come unsoldered from the board. I've had many faults here, and these Xenos, one Xeno there, and I think that's the other Xeno there from memory, those two. Anyway, this all looks quite good. I've also spotted this. Look, I had forgotten that this amp also has another mains fuse here. Look, this wire here goes off up to the off-on switch. So this is another fusing circuit here. So my guess is that this fuse has gone. Of course, why is it gone? Yes, I can see immediately, look. So that's why the amp isn't coming on. That fuse has blown. Of course, we need to know why it's blown. So I think I'm going to replace the fuse. We could just turn it on and see if it blows again, or we could put it up on my bulb limiter here. I'm kind of feeling I want to make this video really simple for people who don't have a lot of equipment, but maybe we'll just pop a new fuse in there and see. The correct fuse for this is a quick blow 1.6 amp fuse. One of these days I must check out why fuses have values they do. I mean, 1.6 amps, why not 1.5 amps? You get 315 milliamp fuses. That's another common value. Strange, really. Anyway, I'm going to pop that in there and turn the amp on, basically. Let's see what happens. Right, new fuse in. We're plugged into the mains. This will either pop straight away or it'll all come to life. So let's see what happens. It's come to life. We're in standby at the moment, of course. So I think I'm just going to leave that now for, I don't know, 5 minutes or something, and see if that fuse holds. Of course, you always kind of want to know why a fuse has gone. It could just be one of those things, but you know, fuses are there to protect, and they blow when there's a fault condition. That's the normal state of things. So you don't want to, well, ideally want to know why the fuse has blown. And one thing you should never do is put a bigger fuse in there. So that's 1.6 amps, and don't think, oh, that blew, we'll put a 2 amp. No, don't do that. Always put the correct fuse in. So it all seems to be working at the moment. Oh, what the hell, let's take it out of standby and see what happens. It blew immediately. Okay. Right, so now we're in an interesting situation. So that fuse popped the second I put the HT on. Right, the next thing that I want to do to make this a kind of lay person's fix is, we don't know why that fuse has blown. As soon as the HT came up, bang, it went. Now it could be a few things. It could be a valve, it could be one of the valves is pulling a lot of current as soon as you put the HT on. It could be a short circuit capacitor here. If one of these HT caps were short circuit, and the second you applied HT to it, bang, it would blow the fuse. So that's a possibility. I'll visually inspect those, see if any of them are leaking. They don't seem to be. No, okay. You know, those are the most common, most likely things that will happen. So what I will do now, again to keep it a layman's fix, is I'm going to pull all the valves out, and we're going to repeat that experiment. If it blows again with no valves in, we know it's nothing to do with the valves, and it's almost certainly something to do with the HT side. You know, of course we could have some major problem like the mains transformer's got a short circuit HT winding or something. But let's not be too pessimistic. Let's see if we can eliminate the valves first of all. So I'm going to sacrifice another fuse at 10 pence, whatever it is, pull all the valves out and see if it blows the fuse again. Okay, all valves removed. I've put them in the bottom here, and new fuse put in. So we're going to repeat the experiment now. Turn on, light comes on. Anyway, I'm hoping that this is okay now, because that makes our life fairly easy. It will just be valves. If we have to get involved in fault finding, I don't know, a short circuit HT cap or something, it'll take us longer. So here we go, 3, 2, 1. Ooh! Okay, it's holding. Now in the back of my mind I'm thinking, you know, coincidence, is it a fluke, did it just happen to take a bit of a surge last time I blew the fuse, this time hasn't taken so much of a surge, hasn't blown the fuse, don't know. But at the moment it's pointing towards some problem with the valves. Maybe one of the valves is short circuit or something. It's unlikely to be a preamp valve. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is leave it on. I'm just going to measure the HT across these caps here just to make sure we've got full HT. Okay, we should have a few hundred volts across these caps here. Let's have a little look what we've got. 250 there, look. 250, 250, 250, alright. And 500 across there, that's interesting. Okay, and across this one here we have 500 across there. No current's being pulled, so they'll be getting maximum voltage at the moment. So it looks like we've got HT floating around. So think to yourself now, what would you do next to prove what's wrong here? Just have a little think. I think what I would do is to put the preamp valves back in. You can either put them all straight in, all three of them, and test it, or you could test one by one. Why don't we test one by one and see how we get on? So I'm going to turn it out of standby, because we know it's putting it in standby that causes the problem. And I'm going to pop the first preamp valve back in. There we go. Bring it out of standby, and it's okay. Put the amp into standby. Second preamp valve. Let's pop that back in. You might prefer to turn the power off to do this, but I've done so many thousands of these I can put them in without any trouble. So there we go, second preamp valve in, out of standby, all okay. Back into standby, third preamp valve, pop that in. Took a bit of getting in that one. Out of standby, all good. So our preamp side is fine, which is kind of what I'd have expected. It's unusual for a preamp valve to blow a fuse. So my money is on these tubes here. Now the next thing you could think about doing would be to, and we probably should, pop these tubes back in and see if it immediately blows a fuse. Yes, okay, we lose another fuse, but at least we'll have certainty that, that it's these valves. So I'm going to turn the amp completely off and pop these back in. The annoying thing will be if this doesn't blow the fuse. Very irritating, that kind of thing, but it does. That's what happens. Right, so the power valves are back in, power on. We'll let it warm up a little bit. I'm hoping that when I turn it out of standby, it'll just pop that fuse straight away. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, bang. Oh, I even saw a flash. So that little sequence is an excellent example of a fault finding sequence, just step by step by step by step. Is it the mains plug fuse? No. Oh look, there's another fuse. Is it that fuse? Yes. Oh okay, that fuse is gone. Why is it gone? What's the simplest thing we can do? Take all the valves out. It doesn't blow the fuse, okay? Put the preamp valves back in, still doesn't blow the fuse. Power valves back in, bang. So what we have here is a pair, or one, almost certainly one, faulty power valve. So what I'm now, well, I'm assuming it is that. We could still be something that when you put the power valves in it blows the fuse, but my money is on these valves. So I'm going to put a new pair of valves in. That's the next thing we can do, isn't it? And see if it holds good with the new power valves. Here we go, a nice brand new pair of JJ 6L6s, and we'll pop those in. As I'm filming this, where are we, March 2022, valves are in incredibly short supply. at the moment. There's a worldwide shortage. The Chinese factory burnt down, and we're just 2 weeks into the Ukrainian war, so all exports from Russia have dried up. So there's a massive shortage of valves at the moment. I've got quite a decent stock, so should be okay for a few months. Okay, so we need to change the fuse yet again. Getting through 1.6 ounce fuses here, but at 10p each, it's cheap diagnosis really, isn't it? Pop another one. I'll be very surprised if this goes, but anything can happen. There we go, out of standby, power on. Let it warm up a little bit. I can't see any reason other than the valves. You know, it didn't blow the fuse when the valves were out. It blew it immediately when the valves were in. Here we're going, out of standby. Bang. Nice hiss coming out the amp. Let's just plug the guitar in. Clean channel. Nice. Not playing, the guitar amp playing's rubbish. Although my playing's got somewhat better after I started repairing guitar amps. I hardly ever picked up a guitar prior to that, and now I play quite a few times a week, just a few chords, you know, and it's amazing how the practice gets you a little bit better. So that is now working. We have a faulty valve. One of these valves is faulty. I don't care which, I'm just going to chuck them both. Well, maybe I'll put them on the tester and see what happens. Okay, so that's job done. That's an actual proper 100% fault finding job there. We know it's the valve, we're not worried about anything else at all being maybe iffy. It was definitely the valve. The thing we have to do now is to check the bias, because we have changed the valves. This is where you can't follow me if you are just learning this and you don't have any gear. But I'm going to use a bias probe. This one's by Euro Tubes. If you are thinking of you know, getting involved in this, do get yourself a decent bias probe. I recommend this one by Euro Tubes. I don't make any money obviously from sponsorship of any kind, and it allows you to just unplug a valve. You plug the valve into the base of the bias probe, and then you plug the bias probe back in, and now effectively you put the bias probe between the valve base and the actual valve itself, and it allows you to read off on here what the bias is. So let's turn it on again. We're looking for 35, 37 milliamps, that sort of thing. And here we go. We've got plate voltage of 491. The bias current is coming up, but unfortunately on this particular one it's very difficult to read. You might just about be able to see that, but I'll tell you what it is. It's 28, 29. So I'm going to increase that slightly, and to do that, there is the bias adjustment pot there, that blue pot. I'm just going to stick a screwdriver in there and bring this up to about 35. Da-da-da. Job done. That's 35. Not that anyone will hear any difference between 29 and 35. That will fill up my inbox. Right, we can now turn off again. Take out the bias probe, put the valve back in, and we are good to go on that. And the customer's going to have to pay for a little bit of my time and a pair of tower tubes. Why that tube went, I have no idea. The amp's been sitting around quite a long time. I have no idea why that would cause it to go, but that has definitely gone faulty, that power valve. Good. Let's get the back on and wrap this one up. Right, I've cleaned up the top a bit with some shoe polish, and I've also done a bit of a bodge fix on this handle by putting a couple of M3 screws through there, so at least now you can pick it up using the handle. If he doesn't like that, he can just get himself a new handle, but that will hold okay until this side goes, of course. There we go. Okay, hope you enjoyed that one. The video was exactly what I hoped it would be. A step-by-step, layperson's, if you want to call it that, guide to fault finding. Just kind of think ahead, what could it be? Eliminate that. What could it now be? Eliminate that. It's just a gradual process of elimination, always going for the simplest of things first. And in this case we got lucky and it wasn't anything complicated. Of course we could have been stopped dead in our tracks and it might not have been the valves and we'd have had to get involved in more serious fault finding. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one. A nice quick job. I'm sure the customer will be happy. He can get back to gigging again, and thanks as always for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.